Good evening, good evening. This is Venus with no mess. How y'all guys doing? Hope everyone is doing great. Welcome to my channel, and please don't forget to hit that like button. Guys, this is this 17-year-old guy and his friends, 16, was kind of upset with this 15-year-old. And guess what? They unalived this 15-year-old because one of the guys were upset with him. Okay. Now the 17-year-old Thomas, he's in the courtroom and the judge is letting him have it. Well, before the judge let into him, the young gentleman that is no longer here, the 15-year-old, his uncle has something to say. And the gentleman that no longer here, his name is Karon Works, and his uncle name is Ricky Brown. And Ricky made a speech, and it was so lovely. And I thought it was right on time. Even the attorney couldn't even say anything. They just stood there. But I'm saying that these young people need to stop it. And I understand that there are a lot of young people raising their own self in their home. But I figure like this, if you can pick up a weapon, you can use common sense. Because I'm going to tell you something, when you get a weapon, you have to have common sense, know what to do with it. You know, you got people here haven't even went no further than the 8th, 9th grade, but they know how to go purchase a gun. They know what to do with a gun. So if you go all out that way trying to go purchase a weapon and know what to do with the weapon, break the weapon down, put the weapon back, but then you can use common sense. And you know, like I said, until they start giving some of these people 60 and 70 years, this stuff is not going to stop. It's not going to stop. Because every day, the young people here shoot each other, unaliving someone. And the sad thing, you unalive someone for no reason at all, just because one of your other boys don't like them. But then you all go to jail and you're looking stupid. So that's why I said that if you take someone's life, you should at least give up 60 of yours. And maybe they'll think twice. So guys, I want y'all to listen to this. And the young ones on here, please stop and listen. Pay attention to what the judge said to this gentleman. It may save some of y'all guys. But like I said, if you had common sense, it will keep you out of jail, maybe save your life. Okay, guys? So hold on a second. Let's listen to this.
I am Karon's uncle. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Works and the Brown family, respectively. It is with profound sadness and a heavy heart that I stand before the court today to deliver this message on behalf of my family. This has been a long, protracted process. The perpetrators have been afforded every opportunity to reconcile their actions, to demonstrate their contrition, or demonstrate their remorsefulness. Not only have they failed to do so, there was a period of time where the friends and family of the defendant today taunted our family via social media with seemingly depraved indifference to my family's sudden and tragic loss of a child. Our lives have been impacted beyond measure. I serve a great many organizations in this community, including organizations that serve victims of domestic violence, as well as at-risk youth. For the better part of the last decade, I have volunteered to work with an organization called the Good Life Youth Foundation, which is wholly dedicated to working with at-risk youth in hopes of preventing tragedies of this nature. I understand intimately the issues faced by these young men because I grew up in this city as well. I unfortunately have experienced poverty. I face many of the issues that this city is plagued with as a direct consequence of that. And while a portion of my younger years were spent waywardly, I had my share of youthful indiscretions. None would ever rise to the level of being catastrophic and irreversible and as heinously calculated as the murder committed with depraved indifference to life. Until I took accountability for my life, until I made decisions that reflected the moral compass inherent in most homes, I made reckless and irresponsible choices. I had to be held accountable for my own choices. Today is about accountability. The violent, senseless, and callous nature in the way Karon was lured, hunted, and indiscriminately fired on by multiple killers ensured that he would never have the opportunity to face the men who tragically took his life. It is very, very difficult to articulate just how traumatic of a loss a child is and the many reverberations we are left to deal with as a family. From his birth mother to his adopted mom, who is also my sister, his siblings, cousins, and family members, including my very own son, born just 3 months prior, we are irrevocably and emotionally traumatized, as this is the first time our family has ever been touched by violence in this fashion. I am not here today to address the perpetrator, but the court, in an effort to appeal for justice on behalf of my nephew Karon, who did not deserve to have his life taken from him at a mere 15 years of age. And while we as a family support the process playing out through the legal system and understand the nature of a plea bargain, a fair sentence today would reflect the calculated and heinous nature and take further into consideration the lack of empathy or remorse shown by those involved. Today, Your Honor, we ask that you sentence according to the nature of this offense. No matter what he is sentenced to today, it cannot bring my nephew Karon back. Please allow us the solace of knowing that justice has been meted out on his behalf and that the defendant be held accountable for his actions which culminated in the death of Karon. We implore you to sentence him to the maximum allowable sentence based on his involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morales.
Thank you.
Mr. Morales.
Judge Burza, I want to thank Mr. Brown for those comments. They reflect a lot of my own thoughts about this case, but obviously in a much more personal and real way. And I thank him for sharing those thoughts. I read Ms. Ballman's report that the defense provided to the court in an attempt to articulate reasons for the court to show some level of mercy for Mr. Thomas here today. That report, I read every one of the pages in the first sort of summary of that report, and it's awful and tragic and sad. But as I listened to Mr. Brown speak, we all know that despite whatever challenges Mr. Thomas may have faced, he had choices to make. That report indicates that, this sort of generic language about men of this age having brains that aren't fully formed, being susceptible to impulses and bad impulse control at that age. That is quite simply not his case. These 3 young men lured Karon Works into his death. They spent the greater part of a half an hour with him, all clearly knowing exactly what the plan was, what their intent was, and that was to assassinate him about a half an hour later. This was not an impulsive act. This was a plan. This is a plan executed by these 3 men, one of whom stands here before you today. I also read this morning the letters from Mr. Thomas and his family, and they again reflect their optimism about his future. His letter in particular is infused with this sense of faith. He says, in talking about his own brother dying recently, I understand about Karon's family's reactions. I know the pain. I feel the pain. I understand it. I'm going to use my time somehow to show other kids that their streets are not what they think it is. His family members describe him as someone who is not defined by this situation, someone with heart and compassion. And Mr. Brown used the word contrition. And as I read this letter from Mr. Thomas in particular, what strikes me is that absent actions, words are meaningless. He has every opportunity to show this court that he is a changed person, that he actually understands the gravity of the actions that he took. He actually understands and wants to lead a better life. So I invite him to ask the court to adjourn sentence for 2 weeks. We have a trial next week. I have a chair for him if he wants. And he can tell 12 people what happened. And he can tell 12 people who did it. He can acknowledge that he is one of the 3 people who killed Mr. Works. Short of that, this is a waste of paper. I'd ask the court to sentence him to a sentence that is the maximum allowable under the plea bargain that we have set, which is a sentence of 25 to life for the assassination of Karon Works.
Judge, I know that you are in receipt of the mitigation report prepared by Syracuse Forensic Mitigation, Karon Works, who has really assisted us in providing the court with a better picture of our client than you would just have by reading the file, Judge. Mr. Moran knows what the plea offer was. It did involve taking a chair, Judge. The court's aware of that. The court approved the range. And while our client may not want to avail himself of that offer, I would submit to you that he has shown this court, Mr. Moran, and everyone in this courtroom a few things. One, that he has taken ownership of this. He did that in December when he entered the plea, Judge. During his time while in Hillbrook and at the Justice Center, he has taken opportunity of every program available to him and provided the court with 10 or more certificates. He's earned educational credits. He has remained out of trouble while incarcerated. Mr. Moran's right, there are choices to be made, but those choices were a lot easier for someone who grew up in the world I grew up in. When you look at someone growing up with a mother incarcerated, drug problem, bouncing from house to house, on the street, around violent people, Judge, this is not any excuse, but it is reality. This is how he grew up. I think he has learned from this. He's accepted responsibility. And he's the first person to enter a guilty plea in this case. I think for all of those reasons, the court should sentence at the low end of the agreed upon range.
I'm sorry about the upbringing that you had. It does sound that you had a terrible childhood with a father that was not involved and a mother struggling with drug addiction and out of jail. And the mitigation report references how you bounced from house to house. And obviously I know that was difficult for you. As Mr. Brown said, youthful indiscretions, recklessness on the part of youth, that's one thing. Based upon your upbringing and being a youth, you're entitled to those things. That's why we have youthful offender adjudication, we have youth parks, because we understand that kids make mistakes and kids need second chances. But this case is more than just a youthful indiscretion. It's more than a stupid mistake. As Mr. Moran said, and as some of the evidence that I've seen in many of the conferences we've had and the videos show how there was communication with Mr. Works. Mr. Works met up with you and your co-defendants, and he was basically walked into the woods and executed. It wasn't a youthful indiscretion. Based upon your upbringing, based upon the youthful indiscretions that you did have in the past, you were offered help, you were offered services. I read through all of your school records and all of the evaluations that they had with you when you're in the city school district to get you more help, to help you succeed in school. And one thing that I did notice is that when you were in a facility, you did excel. Your grades went from 30s to 80s. I think even a few 90s. So it's not that you don't have the intelligence to make the right decisions, because you do have that ability. But you yourself, as you acknowledged in the pre-sentence report, you have associated with the 110 street gang. Now I understand you said you became familiar with the streets and the gangs because the streets were the only thing that you had. And I understand that. I grew up in the city too, going to city schools. But you also acknowledged this life is dangerous. The kids have gotten worse. And you admitted to being in possession of firearms regularly. You claimed for protection, but we know that you do not just use firearms for protection. So you knew that the streets were dangerous. You knew what would happen hanging out in the streets. And like Mr. Moran said, you made choices. You made choices to continue to engage in this life and not accept the help that was offered for you and go down the right path. So as Mr. Brown said, today is about accountability for those choices that you made, the decision that you made to walk Mr. Works into an execution. He was shot multiple times in his torso, his arm, his legs, and from what I believe was close range. You indicate in your pre-sentence report that your lawyer and your family pressured you to take this time because you knew how much time you were facing after trial. And that's the reason people plea bargain. But then you also say, why would I do something to someone I didn't know or who I had never talked to? You deny responsibility, although you pled guilty. So the court would note for the record that when you pled guilty, you admitted your conduct. You didn't protest to be innocent when I took your plea. You went through the plea colloquy, answered my questions, and I found and still find that based upon that you voluntarily pled guilty and admitted your guilt after extensive consultation with your attorneys based on the evidence in this case. Evidence which the court has viewed and which the court feels supports the people's theory with respect to your guilt. You were fully advised of your right to trial. In fact, you pled guilty just before trial, and I was prepared to try your case. You knew the consequences of the plea. You understood, and you pled guilty. Yet then in the pre-sentence report, you try and deny that. And the probation officer indicates that other than your plea of guilty, you have failed to accept responsibility for your actions. You were only 17. Mr. Works was only 15. You both had your whole lives ahead of you. Despite whatever sentence I give you, you still will have a life. You can continue in state prison to get these certificates, to earn a degree, so that once you are released, that you can go on to be a better person and hopefully do some of the things that you say in your letter, to teach other kids to go down better paths than you, to go down the right path. But Mr. Works will never have the opportunity to do anything further in his life, and his family will never have the opportunity to be with him. Therefore, you must be held accountable. It is the sentence and judgment of this court, based upon your conviction of murder in the second degree, that you be sentenced to an indeterminate sentence of 24, with a minimum of 24 years and a maximum of life. Based upon your conviction of criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree under count 2, this is the sentence and judgment of this court that you be sentenced to an indeterminate sentence of 15 years, followed by 5 years post-release supervision. That sentence is to run concurrently with count 1. And based upon your conviction of criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree under count 3, this sentence and judgment of this court that you be sentenced to 15 years, followed by 5 years post-release supervision. That sentence is to run concurrently with counts 1 and 2. In addition, there's a mandatory surcharge of $300, a crime victims fee of $25, and a DNA fee of $50. I will defer the fees and surcharges until after Mr. Thomas's release. You have the right to have an attorney represent you on appeal and a right to have an attorney assigned if you cannot afford an attorney. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Johnson, please further advise your client of his rights. That concludes this proceeding.
Okay, guys, I'm back. I hope some young folks is on here looking at this. You see what this gentleman did? He went out here with his friends and unalived this 15-year-old boy for no reason at all. Just because one of them didn't like the 15-year-old. One of them had a disagreement with him. So the three got together. They walked up on this 15-year-old boy and they shot him. Close range. Okay? Then after that, he gonna tell his lawyer, his family gonna tell his lawyer that he had a hard life coming up. I hate that, people. I really do hate that when something like this happens. Because family always can come up and say, oh, my child or that child had a hard life. That child didn't have his father. Mama was in jail for drugs and all that. Well, you know what? I'm sorry that happened. But that child had unalived someone. And by someone trying to say he had a hard life, why should we feel sorry because he had a hard life? We can't bring that other person back. I'm like the judge. You got your whole life ahead of you once you get out. But that other person would never come back. So that judge, she did the right thing. That's why I want to put this on my page. So any young people looking at this, look at it, listen to it, try to capture much information you can so you won't fall in this trap. This guy thought by telling them that he had a hard life and his mom was on drugs and his dad was in his life, that they were going to stop him from going to prison. No, you're going to prison, buddy. And just pray, hope you learn something while you're in there. But you're going to prison. So then you're going to have to fight your way. Because like she said, she's sorry for his upbringing. Everyone's sorry for it. Like she said, even when he was in detention, he had service, he had resources, he had people to help him. But soon after he got out there, he just went back, got into a gang. He even wrote a letter about how bad the gang was. But he still participated in that. And I'm like the uncle of the deceased guy said, you knew what you were doing. You made those choices. So now you know what? You're going to have to deal with them. And I always say, you commit the crime, you do the time. Because even the judge brought out how he took his grades in when he was in the facility. They was in the 30s. He brought it up to the 80s, had some of it in the 90s. So this is not a dumb kid. He just have his mindset where he going to do what the heck he want to do. He want to do what the heck he want to do. Okay? And I always tell all the young people this. Lack of control. When you have lack of control, lack of discipline or whatever, that can lead to restore control. And you know what that means? That means that problem that you have, that can lead to some discipline where it gonna have to be restored, control, and order. And when that means, it can lead to the law. Because I figure like this, if you don't do it yourself, there's someone else will do it for you. Okay? If you don't discipline yourself, someone else will do it. But they're going to do it in a harsh way. They're not going to be patient with you like you would be patient with yourself. So I tell everybody, please use self-control, discipline, most of all common sense. control your action before someone else does. That's the whole thing. Lack of control. But you can lead to restoring control and order. A lot of people don't know what that means. The law would take over. Behind the wall, you're going to get you control. Because if you have a control behind the wall, it's somebody back there ain't never coming home. Probably end up killed 3 or 4 people. They don't want to hear your lip. They don't want to hear your lip. Then you got some of them in that probably didn't commit the crime. And they in there, they upset. They don't want to hear your lip. So what I want to say, first I should have said is condolence to the 15-year-old family. You didn't deserve that. And my heart go out to the uncle to have to get up there and say that in front of the man, a young boy, whoever he is, that unalive your nephew. That's bad. And I feel for him. But he's going to prison. I know it won't bring your family back. Your family member, it won't bring them back, but at least y'all guys can have some peace knowing that he's behind bars and the other 2 is going to be behind bars. So I just pray and hope that they can just move on, have some closure. But this gentleman right here, I don't feel sorry for him. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. Because like she said, they didn't shoot the boy just one time. They shot him numerous of times. And it was close range. It's not like they shot and ran. They walked up on this 15-year-old kid and gunned him down. So like I said again, you commit the crime, you do the time. So young people, I'm going to say it again, put the weapon down. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Please control your action before someone else does. Because if the law have to control it, it's not going to be nice. And when you go in prison, you with all kind of people behind the gates and stuff. And things do happen. Some people end up getting murdered behind there. You see it in the news. Sometimes they don't even want to talk about it. That's why most of the time when I see something like that, I try to put it on my channel. So young folks can see that. So please, young folks, young people, whatever, how they say it, teenage, youth, whatever you want to say, please put the weapon down. It's not worth it. Until next time, guys, be careful who you come in contact with. Be careful who you keep in your company. It just might save your life and keep you out of jail. Until next time, I'm going to just say peace out.